This is Laserlight Presents All About the Gig.
All right, another episode of All About the Gig. Today we want to talk about today's gig, right? We're in the middle of April. We're looking at unprecedented times in the sense of what's pending, what requirements are coming, still wearing masks, who's getting the vaccination, all of these fun-loving themes, if you will. As artists, again, we have Dave Sorelli, Devin Kruger. We want to talk about what you're experiencing today and how you're booking, what you're booking, and how an aspiring artist who wants to get out there following that spectacular 3-part series of sustaining your success, following that spectacular series of sustaining your success. Now what? That's the question, right? Today, that's the theme.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where you're getting bookings and how you're getting them, and maybe a little bit of why you're getting them. You know, what's the difference? You know, a year ago today, you know, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Those
2 years
are probably,
ago today.
Yeah, 2 years ago, which are probably obvious, but
Yeah.
we can, you know, we can massage in the difference, but most importantly, we want to give everybody out there that go ahead. You know, why is it happening now? Where is it happening? And how to start building that framework again, how to start with a foundation and start laying brick after brick, right? After gigging, and where do we go from here, you know?
It's kind of a mad dash right now. Like everybody is trying to jump back into it.
Yeah.
And, you know, if anybody's out there listening, don't hesitate. Book now. Just send out feelers to anybody and everybody that you know has had live music or will have live music again, because everybody is trying to recapture their old gig schedule.
Yeah.
And the cool thing in this area in Toledo, Ohio, and, you know, I'll give it about a 300-mile radius on any side of us, the Midwest is having a lot of live music coming back in a big way. And it's not just concerts and stuff like that. You know, every bar, every venue, every club wants to regain the summer of 2019 popularity
That
again.
atmosphere, right?
Because a lot of states are relaxing restrictions. A lot of states are kind of bringing it back to how it once was, with a few key exceptions. I know at the time of us talking about this, Michigan's a little bit tighter restricted right now than Ohio. But they're still having live music. Actually, just this past weekend, we went up and saw a good friend of ours playing at a venue that we will also be playing at not too long from now in Adrian area. So, yeah, for anybody listening right now. Yeah,
There it is.
Yes. Yeah. They had some really good stuff there. But like I said, now's the time. If you are wondering, well, how do I do this? Well, come up with a nice template. You don't need something super formal. Just have some good social media links, a couple good videos, and reach out to all these places. Say, hey, my name's so-and-so. I play around town. I play with these different groups. I'm looking to fill out my summer entertainment schedule, and I can provide you with this band, or this band. Maybe you're an acoustic solo act. You know, tell me you're that. Maybe you have a trio. Maybe you have a quartet. Whatever it is, tell them what you can provide and see their requirements, what they're looking for, what kind of music they want, because a lot of these smaller places are looking for acoustic solo acts, duo acts. Some of the bigger places are looking for trios that are more volume conscious, and there's some places that are looking for an all-out rock band, and now is the time to book that. So don't be hesitant, don't be bashful. You know your worth. You've been playing, you are good at your craft. It's time to get out there and make the bookings happen, and then pretty soon you'll look at your calendar and you'll see that every single Friday and Saturday from now till December is booked.
That's outstanding. Follow the steps. Follow what we said. That 3-part series, having your program, the why, the what, and the when, right? If you haven't done it yet, get to it. If you don't have your social media platform up to par, Get it done today. If you don't have the cards, if you don't have the network, start plugging in because it's happening. We're going to be the first to tell you. This is week 3 of April. By March, you'll be playing catch up. You'll be playing second fiddle. You'll be the alternate to people who are moving forward.
Yeah.
Businesses are anxious. They're ready to book. They're ready to fill those seats. They're ready to ramp up their food, everything exponentially. They want to get everything burst back.
I kind of saw the writing on the wall too come about February. That's early February. I started just sending out, probably 50 plus emails every week to, as many places I could think of.
Hey, I'm here. I'm ready to go.
Ready to do it.
It's still happening. Yes. Nice.
And the nice thing is I play with a few different groups, so I don't have to just rely on the booking prowess of one particular group. I play different cover bands and different...
And the genre of the venue, right?
So you can reach out under different monikers for different venues and different things like that, and you can provide a different product, which is a very good thing to be able to do. And another big thing, too, that is coming back in a huge, huge way is all these corporate parties and all these weddings that couldn't happen in 2020 are all happening in a big, big way in 2021 because everybody's ready to recapture that and move ahead with their plans that couldn't happen last year.
And to be fair,
what's
in almost a bigger
there?
way.
Yeah.
Because we have so many bookings that got pushed back from last year.
Yeah.
On top of all the people who still want to do something this year.
You're
of
talking
regular bookings.
collectively, too, though.
So-
corporate to...
Yeah.
To wedding, to everything.
Yeah.
All of it.
Just any event. Any event that was supposed to happen last year probably got pushed to this year. And any event that still wants to happen this year is now dealing with that schedule. So in a weird way, it's actually busier than it would be on a typical year in that sense.
I have to guess that whatever city you live in, but here, we have that promenade in the park or portside or whatever we're calling it today, or the festivals, the hot air balloon, this and that.
It's part of the Solheim Cup this year, I believe.
Okay.
For anybody that's following and keeping tabs on that. And on the DL, there's a group that I may or may not be playing with that may or may not be somewhat associated with the Gwen Stefani concert.
Nice. But the point is, you've got to stoke the coals.
You've got to
put it back out there that, look, if this is happening, if your camp feels that this festival is taking place, what are those county fair, whatever it is, if this is happening and you guys are planning for it, please consider ...
Yeah.
You've got, like Dave was saying, the
Just
email
do it.
blitzes
Yep.
have got to begin. If they haven't already, you're already a touch behind.
And I get it. Being a creative type, we're not always the most business savvy or business forward individuals. It can be hard to sit down and plug away at a computer when that's time you could be practicing. That's time that you could be creating. But if you don't worry about the business side of it, then things won't come together. You will miss out on a ton of opportunities to actually premiere that stuff that you've been creating because people will not just reach out to you and book gigs unless you're some sort of big name or legend or something like that. So,
and it's honestly more important now than it has been in the past, I feel, especially because going along with everything Dave said is the fact that there's this huge cat and mouse game, which goes back to what I just said a minute ago about don't give up. When you send your 50 emails out one week, next week do the same thing, even if no one answers back to you, because there's this huge
jab.
Yeah, you have to keep going at it because so many of these places are playing this cat and mouse game where they're saying, "Oh, we're not booking. Oh, we're seeing what things are going to be like. We're going to do this," and then the problem is that when they open the doors and don't tell anyone, by the way, they just decide one day they're going to accept bookings. If you're not the person who gets a hold of them that first week, they've booked every Saturday out till the end of the year already by the time you call them, and you're a week late because they're so clamored to fill up their calendar as soon as they feel they're allowed to that all of a sudden they're done. And then some places are taking the other approach where they're like, we're only doing a month at a time. So if you don't stay on top of them, you're never going to get any dates from them until they open up. So there's this game of like, just because someone didn't get back to you, know that a million other people are trying to get a hold of them at the same time right now. So you just have to keep poking at them. And I feel like more now than ever, I've had to be working on social posts and make sure I had videos, make sure I could say what gigs I played at, which becomes that cat mouse issue again of they want to ask me, where have you been playing lately? And I'm like, well, I wasn't playing at a lot of places. And luckily now, since February has started, we've actually had a handful of good gigs, and we made sure to record and get videos from those so we can make some social posts. So that way, once we got a couple people who would let us in the door right off the beginning, because it kind of feels like starting all over again. We got those in the door, and then we would make promotional material and then just start blasting that at the people that we wanted to book us next.
That's kind of a combo accreditation, though, right? So if somebody says something like, where have you been playing lately? That means that, A, you've maintained a sustainable success level because you've put the time in, you've researched, you've exhausted the avenues, and you got out there and you kept gigging.
Well, yeah, and from the bar owner's perspective, what they're looking for is if they don't recognize your name off of the first time that they talk to you, what they're looking for is ways that they can justify that you are a professional and you're already cream of the crop and you're a safe bet.
Nice.
I can book you and know that you're a safe bet because with all the turmoil that's been going on, you're still playing. You must be pretty good if you're still putting it out there.
Yeah.
So it's this whole thing
and
where
reliable.
They're totally valid,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, reliability is always crossing someone's mind that has a venue, and they're like,
First thing on their mind.
Jesus God, I'm going to book this band, and I hope to God they show up.
That's why showing up and having all your equipment is more important than what you play.
Good
half
God,
the time.
right?
I've seen some pretty terrible bands who I'll never name, but the thing is that they were on time, they showed up, they were polite people, they didn't make a scene at the bar, and they had all of their P's and Q's in order.
Yeah.
And then they did their gig and they left, and maybe no one was wowed by it, but it's like they were reliable, they were here, they put on performance, they had some buddies who came out and bought drinks, so there was a crowd.
Sure.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're going to get booked.
Oh,
So,
I get it.
and that trumps talent 9 times out of 10. You can have the most virtuosic players in town all playing at the same show at the same time. And if they don't bring anybody and there's no bar sales and there's nothing that happens from it,
The drummer forgets his sticks or
anything, or their sound equipment is not up to snuff, or the band's kind of late, or they're kind of rude about taking too much breaks or something like that. Even if they truly are objectively the best players in town, they're never getting hired there again because they didn't mark off the things that the bar needed.
God. Real quick, let's touch on this real quick. Okay, so now everybody's amped up. They're ready to go. Their socks are rocks. Yeah?
Sure.
Are they the rocks or socks? I don't know how that saying goes.
Their socks are rocked.
Yeah. I need some helium. No. So, no,
get a
everybody's
geologist
pumped,
up in
right? You know what? They get it. They're pumped. Oh, man, I got to do this. I got to do that, right? Okay. What's smart for individual artist or group, duo, trio, and band? Let's go artist, duo, trio, band. Obviously relative to themes, meaning genres or whether, not genres, but where they're playing. And then, of course, the genre related, right? Well, we're going to do this over here, and that crowd typically wants to hear this.
Yeah.
Point being, artist, duo, trio, band. What's smart right now? How do you get yourself in the A slot when it comes to the ask, the money? Let's talk about monetary.
Oh, okay.
What's the smart ask right now?
The first thing I would say, and this relates back to pricing, is that if you are a solo or duo gig, make gigs happen. Don't even worry about venues. Pay attention to your local art scene. Pay attention to your local paper and what's going on in the area and what places seem friendly to the arts in your community. If you got a cute little boutique somewhere in town that, makes handmade things or something like that, whatever it is, it's nice enough now that
A
it's
gallery, even whatever.
You just call up a place like that and say, hey, if you get for X amount of money or something like that, would you let me play in front of your shop? Would you ever consider live music? We'll do
some
it on a
ambience,
Sunday
right?
afternoon, or what's your busy day? Is there a farmer's market next door to you on Saturdays? We'll play outside around then, and it can be associated with your shop. When you're that small, duo and solo, and also the monetary amount isn't nearly as much as for full bands. I think a big thing for locking yourself in some locations is just making the locations yourself. You go in there and say, you should have music. And it doesn't work all the time, but you only need like 1 in 20 to hit occasionally until all of a sudden you find out by the end of this year and now going into next year, you're like, hey, we've got a monthly gig now at this place. Every like last Sunday of the month. Now we play there all throughout the warm months of the year.
It's on the books.
Yeah, and then you get another one, and another one is like,
Right.
Tuesday afternoons or something like that. And you just have to get a couple of those places who will sit there and book you on a monthly basis, and you peg a couple of those away, and it doesn't take that many until you find that your schedule's actually getting pretty full.
And guess what? Like the rest of life, who knows in there who knows who's in there having a scone or a coffee or
that's true.
whatever. You're always broadcasting yourself no matter where you are. And don't think that anything is too little, or too small scoped.
It's never too small.
It's never,
In fact,
you just don't know.
one of the biggest conversations that we've had in private, like off of this in when we're playing together or like with our trio and such, and we're hanging out afterwards, is just this idea of how much we respect some of the biggest names going out and playing sometimes at these tiny clubs. Like there's a handful of like jazz musicians who we adore. I'm going to throw out Osnoy as the example. He comes up pretty often, actually. He's a fantastic guitar player. And then you'll find a video on YouTube of him like in a coffee house in New York, just somewhere
Like 30 people.
like shoved in an odd little corner, like the kind of thing that you expect for someone for their very first gig, like no accommodations, in a weird corner, in a weird space. People are just walking by this guy who's been like, Grammy nominated and all these huge records and played with everyone. And they're just like eating breakfast next to him, like there's nothing happening in front of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's someone who has some humility to like literally always play the gig, no matter where the gig is, make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. In a broader sense, to kind of answer your question about how you should approach. No, I like.
I'll believe me, I was coming back. I mean, that was all
actually answer the
wonderful,
question.
but we never got to the monetary assignment of gigging
I like your answer.
today.
'cause
Gigging today.
That is the important part, is like, how do you even get to the point of asking for a monetary value? But to once you've established these places and you've convinced certain places to have live music, or maybe you can get on their roster, on their schedule, it all then boils down to self-valuation and time requirements. So the way that you would charge a 2-hour gig versus a 4-hour gig is going to be vastly different. The same way that, if you're working a job and you worked for 2 hours, nobody's going to pay you for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So you need to go in with, okay, I want this amount of money for 2 hours. Oh, the venue wants 3 hours. Okay, well, all of a sudden that's an upcharge. Do you want us to bring our own sound system? Do you provide your own sound system? What sort of things are you looking for? Are
Don't
you
forget
looking
that checklist, people.
Are you looking for some venues will directly tell you, I expect 2 hour-and-a-half sets with a 30-minute break in the middle. So you're there for, 3.5 hours. Or maybe you're there for 4 hours and they still expect you to do 3 sets and they break that up a certain way. All of that goes into what you should charge. And it's always been kind of a golden standard around the Midwest that you should be able to pay your musicians $100 each for the night, whatever that may be.
Minimum.
Absolute minimum.
So your target value based on 2, 3, or 4 hour, well, no, let's not extend it too far.
Typically 3 hours.
2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Target value is $100 per person.
Yep.
And I would even like to say,
And working food and drink, for the love of God, people.
Yeah. We're normally expecting a tab and some food off top of that as well.
Yeah, for love.
and although that has been the golden standard since the 70s, which is an issue in and of itself, I would even like to say that musicians should start valuing their time more so. I think that the $100 gig is antiquated. I think we should be asking for much, much more
because
nowadays.
that's when it was a saturation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's never inflated. It's never came up with, so it's literally been the $100 gig since the late 70s. And it's never come up. And musicians are still abiding to that rule. Yeah. And, I think everybody should take an introspective look to their own value. But I personally like to charge more than $100 per musicians because I think that the people I'm playing with are worth more than $100 of their time.
Yeah. Start small if you're apprehensive or you're like, oh God, I mean, what am I, am I going to get shut down because I'm asking for 110, 115, 120? Just start some sort of incremental jump.
Normally you jump by like groups of like 25, so you're thinking like a buck 25, a buck 50, buck 75. Per
who doesn't like round
person.
numbers, right? Yeah, I like it.
And if you aim too high, the venue will quickly, if they're interested in you, like they're not going to just shut it down entirely. If they took in the time to actually reply to you initially, they will counteroffer. Like if you say, oh, I want $800 tonight, and that's out of their price range, they'll be like, okay, typically the highest we can go is $650 or something like that. They will come back to you with a number if you way outpace their price range. And honestly, they respect that. If you try and charge way out of their price range, a lot of the times they'll be like, oh, these guys actually like value their time, and they And I've had many a times where a venue owner will apologize to me and tell me like, I'm really sorry, you guys are clearly worth this price point. However, this is as much as I can afford on Friday nights right now.
Now, do you mean post-production or like post-performance, or do you mean up front?
When do they tell you that?
When you set up, I apologize. You know what? Good God. I really appreciate you reaching out, and holy crap, you guys are this and that.
What they'll do, so they'll ask you typically what you charge. I do actually like to have the venue then ask me what I charge. Sometimes they'll be forward with it. Sometimes they'll tell you directly what they'll give you. But sometimes they'll ask you what you charge. And then I will tell them a price, and they will either agree to it. And sometimes if they agree too quickly, I'm like, I should have charged a little bit more. Oops.
Yeah, you can make that little footnote, though. Get your ledger out and make that little footnote.
And that's totally fine. But
and if it's a pay that you're willing to accept, there's always the idea that like, let's play the season out like that and be amazing. And then come time for next season or next year, we'll ask for the pay bump and know that we deserve it. Especially when they agreed so easily to the first price, where it's like, okay, obviously we're worth more than that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So looking at my notepad, go ahead.
I was going to say, to add to that, one of the big ones that I was taught in high school.
Wait, everybody listen. Oh, I thought that was a jet plane.
the jet plane.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
I thought it was an afterburner sound.
Yeah, there was.
So that was natural. That was not anything we added to it. Go ahead, Devin.
But one of the best advice I got actually in high school, which I still stand by, which is one of the things that you're being paid off the first is to carry your equipment somewhere and set it up, especially if you're bringing your own sound. So they would tell me, like, I just did a little gig over the weekend, and technically it took a lot longer. But technically it was only supposed to be like 3 to 15 minutes worth of performing. But I had to get all my equipment downtown, and I ended up charging like $150 for it, partially because they were an alumni of my high school. I was trying to be nice to them.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons is like, it doesn't matter if I'm there for a minute. If you're asking me to drive somewhere, be dressed in a particular way, bring all my equipment, set it up, I learned music for you ahead of time.
Ooh.
That is how much it costs just to have me show up.
That's an order.
And that price might be different in other places, but it's kind of like having an electrician come to your house. Even if they don't do anything, there is a surcharge of me being here.
Nice point.
And then when we get to the point of talking for multiple hours, then we'll discuss a different pay raise.
Yeah.
But I was like, just for me to show up and bring things here, I don't care if you only want me for 60 seconds. Like, that's going to be my bottom line.
Dude,
just
nice
to show up.
point. Yeah. So if there's a pre-order, sure. I'd like you to have do this, do that. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Other than, hey, here's a window of time. Create your own space within that time. You do your preliminaries.
Yeah.
What do you have? What do you not have? But the point is, you're getting center stage for that time versus I've been hired to do a specific thing. Nice point, dude. Mm-hmm. I want to circle back to 1, 2, 3 of the notes that I can't read. Okay. But I'm this one either says pentagram, which is not possible. Penthouse, which
you see all musicians are
almost
indeed
possible.
devil worshippers, right?
Right. Yeah. It's definitely not. Yeah.
That devil's music.
I know it starts with a P.
Okay.
But I think it's an R, ironically. And the note is
now for $3.99.
It might be rehab. I'm not sure, but that is a different cast.
Some musicians
so it couldn't be. Yeah.
Hi, Ryan.
Yes. Yes. My name is Ryan. Yeah. And I am addicted to helium. No. Okay. So I do believe this is what it is. Circling back to what you were saying, when you said when venues reply, let's beat it to death. Why did they reply? They replied because
they are interested and or they are so needing of musicians that they are casting a wide net. And
why did they reply to you? Just beat it to death.
I think it's
Social
presentation.
Media. Yeah.
The first step is you want to find a delicate balance between a formal business email and an informal, I'm a creative musician that's going to provide a fun night for your bar.
Ooh, nice.
If you come at it like super professional and like it's almost over the top with like perfection. Yeah. If it literally looks like something that you would send in a corporate memo.
Don't make it canned.
Yeah. Then that might turn them off a bit. Okay. Some people like that. Yeah, I mean, some venues do like that.
Some people will like it, but I often equate it towards like the idea of like, I was like, I've grown the long hair. And like my wife used to be like, are people going to respect you when you go to like weddings and like these high dollar events and they're paying you a lot of money? And I said, you know, what's funny is the more less clean cut I've gotten and the more I've like leaned into this, I said, all the customers respected me more. They're just like, oh, you're not here to try and win anything over. Like he's here for music and music nothing. He's gonna bring a party.
Yeah.
Like and they're so set for it. So there's a little bit of that where like if you're a rock band, they're kind of expecting you to be a little bit of a rock star and like kind of show up and do that. But you have to be able to play that balance of like, I'm also on time and I answer my emails well and I am articulate.
Yeah, you have to be eloquent with how you speak. You can't just like go at them with like a bunch of nonsensical words and
rock on emoji,
stuff like that. It's still an email. It's still an email.
Well, I'm out. No, I can't even read my notepad.
Well, okay. It's still an email, but you want to make it fun. Be like, hey, this is what we do. We have the ability to play anything from a Sunday morning jazz brunch to a Saturday night dance party and everything in between. Whatever you want, we can provide. And then here is the links to back it up. Now, if they reply, I assume, I don't know any booking people well enough to actually ask them, why did you book me? But I would assume that they actually took the time to click on something I sent them, vet us enough to be like, okay, these guys can competently play their instruments. They're not just going to pull their pants down and, make a fool of themselves on this stage. They're going to do something correct. Yeah. So I assume that they vetted us at least enough that they trust us. And even if it's a first timer sort of thing, like I've never played there before, they might have seen previous social media posts of us playing at different spots and said, okay, these guys do this. We'll give them a chance here. Yeah.
Also, attire matters if you're sending them videos. Like, you're not going to send them a video of you playing, like, at a nice winery club and you showed up in a Hawaiian shirt and shorts and, like, flip-flops or, like, sweatpants. Like, it's like they saw a video and it's like, you don't have to be in a suit or anything like that, but you dressed appropriately for wherever you were.
Yeah, the way you can assimilate
to
a venue and the venue's expectation.
Exactly.
So, Dave, you were saying that you would assume...
I would assume that the venue has at least vetted what I was sending them. They would have at least listened to anything that I had sent them, and they are at least trying to find a way of making sure that I would not make a fool of myself at their venue.
Or just be inappropriate. You know? All right. So let's take that for a moment.
I was going to say, there's a human element to it too, which is sometimes if a place hasn't been answering you nearly as well, approaching them with something like, what days or hours are you at your location? I will come to you and talk to you in person. Yeah. Or the flip side of you've never gotten a response from anyone, and then you just start driving to these places and hoping the person's there or asking when they will be there. Because there's a handful of people who are just old school and they want FaceTime. And they want you to call them. They want to talk to you. They don't want to do emails and they don't want to do Facebook Messenger and they don't want to do text messages. They want to talk to you. So you have to make the time sometimes to do that too. So one thing I'll give as a tiny tip before I'll let you continue on is that make yourself a document, record all of your locations, record everyone's names, everyone's contacts for all those places, and then mark down next to all those locations, how do they best like to be contacted? is this the venue where you need to go in and talk to Stacy, the manager, when she's working only on Sundays after 4:30? Or is this the person that you can just send an email to and they're actually back to you like within like 20 minutes every time? It's like they never put their phone down.
I think you have to add to that. You have to add to that Excel or Notepad. How do they best like to understand the exemplification? See, so when you're speaking to that,
because they really are people and booking managers.
But how do you showcase yourself is what I'm saying. So yes, you're traveling. You're going to make yourself a nice little circumference, a Google map, bing, 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 bing. But let's just remind everybody, I'm walking in, I'm speaking to, Joe Owner. How is Joe Owner going to listen to me when it comes to, well, what do you sound like? Well, what's your music? Or do you have a site? Do you dare exemplify anything on your cell phone at that moment? Do you just leave that behind? See, in my life experience, it's never leave any loose ends. If I have come in and I've taken the time and I've commanded your attention and I've got that 15 minutes, right, or less, I better be able to show you what I'm talking about.
It's a careful balance, but the way that I've always done it is I don't go out of my way to show them something right here and right now because I'm not trying to appear desperate. I'm trying to appear like I deserve to play here. I belong to play here, and you should
because you've done your research.
You're
speaking to that. Listen, I didn't just show up here blindly.
Yeah. And also, I don't feel like I need to technically prove myself. Like, we should play here. You should book us. We're the kind of thing that you would enjoy. And instead, what I'm going to do is make sure that by the end of our conversation that I have your personal email or your personal phone number. And I'm like, great, I'd love to shoot you some dates. I'm going to send you some videos so that way you can just check us out and vet us. And afterwards, after you listen to that, shoot me back.
So
and
you're making it effortless on their part.
Yeah, I make it, and I'm not going to shove it in their face. They took the time enough
to see you and speak to you. Let me do the rest.
And I'm leaving them with a little bit of wanting to be like, he seemed confident. He seemed to know what he was talking about. He knew numbers. He knew what he wanted to be paid. He was on top of it. And then
so he must have the product to back it up.
Yeah, and he has the product back. I got to check out this video he sent me. And then they'll go watch it later.
So wow, yes, I like it.
Leave them wanting.
Okay, wow them.
Yeah,
and leave them wanting.
Leave a card with them or something like that.
Yeah, leave a card.
Yeah, I would venture to say that I would definitely not recommend trying to show anybody anything in the moment. Let them arrive to it themselves. Plus, a lot of those places, they are running a business there. It's loud. There's people eating. There's people drinking. There
might be
laughing.
a band there right now that's loud.
And you're most certainly not going to be able to get them to listen to something in that moment. So you leave it up to them to decide how they want to arrive to you. And quite honestly, you're going to strike out with some of these places. You're not going to book at every single place you try, no matter how hard you try. There's just some places that they either didn't like you, or they are too full with other entertainment, or they are themselves, again, humans and very bad at replying to the point where you just always miss them.
Keep them on your cold call list, though.
Yeah, keep trying.
Next season, next year, keep pushing.
All right.
It's a numbers game too, so you don't want to put all your, if you spend hours and hours and hours trying to find the perfect approach to approach one venue with, that's hours and hours wasted, because you should divvy that across all these different venues. It becomes a quantity game. You want to try and reach out to as many places as you can, and even if that requires you to go to some of them, that's cool. If there's one venue, chances are down the road there's another one and another one and another one, because people like to be in big metropolitan areas.
And one-offs are one thing, but this really is a long-term game anyways, because what you're betting over is me over the next 3 to 4 years. I want to slowly, every couple months, gather a new location that could become a monthly or bi-monthly gig, or a venue that's like a summer gig all summer, every summer.
Man.
And you're just slowly trying to get those in your pocket. So it's not about, I just started sending emails a month ago, and I have no gigs, or I only have 2 gigs on the books. Well, it's one, they probably booked you and they want to see how you do before they book you for more.
Sure.
And if that gig's kind of far out, by the time you play there again, they might have booked the rest of the calendar. So then what they're saying is, get in for me late winter and we'll book all next year. So it's look at the work you did in February to get a single gig in July, don't think of it as in a single gig. Think of it as an
audition.
I put a bunch of stuff in February. They finally let me do my audition basically in the summer. And then next year, they booked me for like 6 gigs. And the year after that, they booked me for 7 gigs. And the year after that, they booked me once a month, 12 gigs. And it's like, that's in the pocket. And all you need to do is start getting a handful of those. Because if you have like 5 to a dozen of those locations in your bag, all of a sudden you find that you have a pretty steady gig schedule going on. And then you're not scrambling so much. So it's really about building this over time.
It's a confidence builder too.
Yeah.
When you get that just keeps feeding, I don't want to say the ego, but it just keeps feeding your machine.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the pad. So I mentioned earlier that I had 3 notes that I couldn't read. So we worked through the first one, which started with a P, but actually was an R. This next one says current body. Which could not possibly mean anything that's relevant to our conversations. So, but
I like this one.
Let's think about it. But let's think about this current body. Did you just turn into Jabba over the whole COVID quarantine? Did you even lose so much weight that you looked like a surviving victim of something?
Okay.
And are you staying up with believing that appearance helps? Let's talk about appearance. Now, in that school of thought, I did work my way through a half a dozen donuts in 2 days, a full gallon of milk.
Yeah.
But I worked my ass off all weekend on yard work.
I will
say, is there a balance?
Appearance actually more matters with showing up with clean clothes, showing up with the correct attire, don't look disheveled.
Sure.
It's not so much about
you're not trying to do the Seattle grunge.
No,
I'm starving and dying.
If you're playing a jazz gig at a nice upscale restaurant, you need to show up with a nice suit that's not all wrinkled and not stained, and your tie needs to fit, and stuff like that. It's generalized body norms or whatever that really doesn't matter all that much. It's more about just present yourself correctly. Don't show up to a nice jazz gig wearing a t-shirt. Don't show up to somebody's wedding wearing
everything's not a statement. Everything's not a statement. There's those genres and those venues where it's statement appropriate, but just remember, man, that bookings are important to be paid attention to with the expectations, right, of what that venue needs from you. So on a reverse flip of what Dave's speaking to, which is a pre-framed spot that would most likely have some sort of border boundary element going on there for what they're expecting. Let's talk about the spaces and places where you get to be everything that you want to be and that you want to say who you are. What are those places like?
I mean, those spaces can certainly be very freeing. It's nice to know that you have a captive audience who wants to listen to you. And what's funny about some of those gigs is sometimes they're not always the best paying, or there's been other times where sometimes they weren't even the one where the audience paid the most attention to, which is also a funny one. So there was something really fun and freeing in both the places where we had a captive audience who wanted to hear what we were saying. And then it's like, oh, great, we have people who are actually appreciating what we're doing. But then on the flip side of it, you had certain places that they booked you no matter what. They always had a crowd. The bar made money. They were happy. But you were almost like a flower on the wall in the sense that you were just playing. And those became fun because in the line of work that we've been doing and with our busy schedules, often rehearsals became very, very hard to ever fit in. And for a lot of players, they start to monetarily not make sense. Every time you did a rehearsal, you weren't getting paid for a gig. And there was only certain gigs where people would pay you for rehearsals. Those are a little far and few between because they have to be pretty big gigs for the person to want to also pay you to come in for a rehearsal. So what ends up happening is some of those gigs, you don't do it the whole time, but you might sneak in a song per set or something like that. That's actually pretty new for everyone. And you can trust no one's going to fall on their face on stage, but you're like, this is a bit of a paid rehearsal, and we're going to shoehorn a handful of these in. So that way when we do the Friday gig, like everyone's at least got a stab at the song.
Sure.
So those also become really, really freeing, just to know, like, not only can we play kind of what we want and the audience is maybe enjoying it or not paying attention, but at the same time, now I can have a paid rehearsal space, and also, not that they're not paying attention, but I can also see what the audience thinks of it, get a nice vibe for the room. Like, do people actually know this song? Is it a deep cover? Am I being too much of a musician right now? Or is this not really a top 40 song? Like, is this actually out of the public zeitgeist?
Yeah. What do you think, Dave? You know, when is it time to express yourself, you know, versus it's time to keep yourself in a lane? You know, same thing, I'm sure. I mean,
it's more on a spectrum. I think you are able to express yourself at least a bit on just about every performance. Anytime you're playing music, I mean, that is some sort
an
of
expression.
some form of expression. But yeah, like Devin said, there's kind of a correlation with the higher paying gigs being a little bit more stay in your lane, do what you're asked to do. And some of the more free gigs are more of an artistic statement, where it's, you know, people are coming out for the art of it. It's not super high paying. You're going to have more of a niche audience. And it can be more of a rehearsal type situation where it's like, okay, we're here to try some stuff, and the audience just enjoys the artistic process. So it doesn't really matter if it's not, you know, the top 40 tune. It's not the newest song by Dua Lipa. It's not the newest, you know, Taylor Swift album.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you know, a top 40s cover gig. It's more like, okay, we're here to play some tunes.
Yeah.
Some people like what we're doing. Some people are just kind of here for the atmosphere. In those situations, you can be a little bit more expressive. And, you know, dress code doesn't matter as much for that kind of stuff. You can wear your favorite T-shirt, whereas, you know, if you're playing at some upscale restaurant downtown, you cannot wear your favorite T-shirt. Sure. You need to wear your favorite dress shirt, you know, stuff like that. So each gig has a little bit of a different expectation. Now, there is a few like unspoken rules that I think not every musician follows, but I think they should. It has to be incredibly, and I just mean, even if it is incredibly hot to the point where I'm dying outside, I don't even think I would still wear shorts to a gig. There's something about wearing shorts to a gig that's just kind of like a taboo thing. Yeah. And I was taught this in college by some of the professors, like, no, don't wear shorts to a gig. And I don't know exactly where it came from or why, but like that's an accepted rule across the board, is like no matter what.
Unless you're like a metal drummer.
Or a Rastafarian group, or, you know, something tropical, by design, you know.
I've played
some sort of
I've played summer festival stages where, you know, it's clocking 98 degrees out, and I'm still in there in black jeans, like, man,
satin
this
Levi's.
is uncomfortable.
I'm sure
Drip,
like Hawaii and Miami have some different like standard rules for their communities, but
I would hope. I don't
in
know.
Northwest Ohio, that is very much the case.
Yeah, we're told you can wear short sleeves, but something about shorts. I don't know.
Good point to know. Yeah. Good point to make, you know, precedent.
Bit of a digression, but we can.
So that leaves me with my third note that I can't read, which somehow says comp, woman, etc. So we're going to leave that.
Well, while we figure out that, I'll answer something Dave said, which is going off of like being able to try things out. One thing I'll also say is, within reason, you're really going to have to use your own taste to decide where you can get away with this. But if you think what you do is really good and you can do a good version of that, you can sometimes get away with bending the genre you might think might belong at a bar. And what I'll say with that is, no matter where you're playing, don't ever discredit the intelligence of your audience, because if you think that you're just going to be at some ho-hum dive bar and like they're not going to care for anything besides like classic rock tunes or something like that, like we just proved that wrong a couple weeks ago. We played at a dive, and like we pulled out like an old Jeff Beck standard, and it's an instrumental, and it's like, you know, it's not really the kind of thing you'd normally play. Is that one that goes I think so, because we ended as lovers.
For those of you that are enthusiasts, I'm like, I know that one.
I know that one. But, you know, we played that one, and I just thought it'd be a nice way to, like, ease out of a set, and I figured, worst comes to worst, no one claps, no one complains, though. And we snuck it in, and we got to have some fun.
Like you've talked about, man, sometimes no response is the best response.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Cool. That went over well.
But no, immediately some guy came up to us after the set was over. Was just so ecstatic, like, I can't believe you guys pulled out that not only that Jeff Beck tune, but you did that Robert Trier one. That's a deep cut.
Man.
And it's like, I had no expectations of anyone in the bar recognizing either of those songs, let alone actually enjoying
What a
them.
reward.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, don't look down on your audience. You never know who's sitting there.
Yeah.
And if you do it tastefully and you don't sit there and go completely outside of what you're doing, it gets away. Because like we didn't do like a jazz standard. We didn't play All the Things You Are or something there. Where it's still electric
might be a
guitar.
little bit.
It's still distorted. It's still
Yeah.
within the realm of
I
possibility.
would always, in my mind, I was, in that limited time, I was always hoping and planning for that one or two who would just be like, yes, man, we got it. I just love that happened. How rewarding is that? I mean, it just makes you feel so good.
Yeah,
when that,
the only thing that can make that better is, and this happens very occasionally, but every once in a while you push into something that wasn't quite what you were planning on playing that gig, but you're stretching your audience. And every once in a while you get a fantastic reaction and you're like, oh, we can do more of this.
Man,
They're
yeah,
actually
sure.
digging it. And now you're really feeling out your audience and you're tailoring your music.
Yeah.
And if you have great players who can flip on the fly and change things up, that's a great place to be.
And
to
circle
start.
back to your notepad. Remember the notepad we were talking about? Circle back. Hey, did this, went over great. That doesn't mean it's going to happen the next time, but it's going to definitely happen the next time.
Well, it's being
it's just
flexible.
odds.
A good band doesn't necessarily always play their set top to bottom. If you're gauging the room well, and if you've played with enough people and you have enough tunes under your belt, or if you can alter songs on the fly, even if you stick to the songs, but you can make them fit a different vibe for the room, you can really play into an audience's hand. And you can do it in a way without having to just be like, give me suggestions. Yeah, we'll play Freebird for you, blah, blah, blah. Like you're still catering to the audience without having to become a jukebox, which is the trick. Because it's not that I don't mind taking requests, but I'd much rather organically try and figure out what the room really wants and build it up with songs that we're strong on already, instead of me feeling like we're going to have to pull a request out from a hat that like we're not really that familiar on, but they're asking for it, so we'll make it happen. Nice. And I feel way stronger about saying like, they're digging this, we already know this stuff in our catalog, we could start pushing the room in that direction, and I bet you will make more tips. I bet the bar will make more money, and if they go over a certain amount, we get more money. Like, it's good all around.
Yeah. So Dave, what is up and coming for you? You don't have to say venue specific, but just give me some genre themes.
Sure.
And then Devin, obviously do the same. We want to speak to that thought process, like consider this. Hey, it's April, weddings and shower, parties and corporate and bar venues and festival things. Dave, let's start with you, and then Devin, you go to
a big part of my summer is going to be top 40s, cover gigs, classic rock, stuff like that. A lot of acoustic duo stuff. I've recently started playing with a corporate wedding band, so I got a few of those coming up. I'm playing a few summer festivals as well with, again, the same cover band that I was talking about from earlier. And we are playing anywhere from Toledo, Ohio, to Cleveland, to Detroit, to Columbus, just basically a 100-mile radius all around Toledo.
Nice.
All different bar venues, all different styles of music, jazz trios. Just quite literally just about everything. I think between now and the beginning of October, I have 3 dates open on a weekend. So I have 2 Saturdays and 1 Friday between now, which is April 19th, all the way until the beginning of October.
check it out.
So it's starting to get nice and full.
Yeah.
I literally just talked to my consultant this morning because we were having a technical difficulty, which is a whole different subject. But,
Sure.
we were both just joking about the fact that like we've almost had nearly a full year off, with the exception of a handful of little sporadic dates last year that still got to happen. And we're like, there was no ease in process this year. Starting literally this weekend, I am gone for the next 42 weekends in a row, just straight up going fully into 2022. And then that's our corporate wedding groups and things like that. And Off top of that, then I of course have like my power trio groups and the trios that I play with people like Dave and everyone in the area. And then we're starting to book more duo gigs, which I'd gotten out of a couple of years ago just because I was trying to not have to sing as often. But, you know, in the hopes of booking more and just getting some gigs flowing this year, because as far as I'm concerned, this year I could play Monday through Sunday because I just want to make up for last year at this point. I just want to make it happen. So, you know, we're just booking everything we can. And I'm letting myself just ease back into that. Honestly, my big thing this year is I've been pushing more on not only booking myself, but also just getting on top of like videography and doing some editing, which was always part of my goal, but I've just been making it happen sooner. And
beef up that capture
building
part,
up
you
that
know, like, hey,
section.
this is what I've done. Check out what we did over here. By the way, I've been following both of your posts, you know, Dave Sorelli music, Devin Kruger music, the different models and bands that you're in and what you're doing independent of things. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So anybody out there, get yourselves to Dave Sorelli music and get yourselves to Devin Kruger music, because there's a great buffet, if you will, of, you know, here's some things here, here's some things there, different ways to promote, different things, you know.
Well, going back
thanks,
to
man.
well,
I
thank you.
appreciate it.
Well, thank
man,
you.
I'll tell you what, it's outstanding, guys.
Thank you.
But I'm sure Dave feels the same way I do, which is, you know, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning about booking places, there's something really interesting about this whole situation where it kind of feels like everyone got put on the same level. There was no bands who really had much precedent anymore. Like, unless you were the Amelia Earharts or something like that maybe had a pretty big name. For the most part, even players who'd been playing in town for 20 years, they got treated like a beginner again.
Yeah.
Every venue just pretended like we're meeting you for the first time. And it's interesting because at one point you could view that as a negative, but like, whatever, it's the world you live in and deal with it. I view it as a positive because I'm like, oh man, we all are on an equal footing, and now it's like we're restarting again. So I was like, I've been hitting the ground hard.
Jump in there. Yep.
Yeah, hit the ground hard, which is one of the reasons I've been spending more time doing video editing this past like 3 weeks
So
than
that's
I'm
the
actually
lesson.
playing.
Yeah.
Pay
Same here.
attention. You're talking about career musicians.
Yeah.
So that's the lesson. Pay attention. We're here with career musicians who are telling you that the pulse and the pace has ramped up.
Yeah. No one
I'll tell
has
you what-
anything over anyone right now, so it's like
Yeah.
you're at the same level as almost
that's-
everyone else.
okay.
So hit it hard.
Sure. Yeah. Try to get in that in the groove and in the slots. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, great cast. Today's gig. What's happening? What's the pace? What's the tempo? And most importantly, what you should be doing to get on it and get after it.
Yeah.
Cool?
Cool.
Cool,
right.
cool. All right. Later, everybody. We'll see you next time.
This has been Laserlight Presents All About the Gig.